Hello everybody and welcome to another exciting episode of the Jack the Lad podcast. On today's episode we've got on Carl Thompson. Welcome.
How you doing, Jack? You all right?
Yeah, not too bad. Yourself?
Yeah, good, thank you.
Good. Obviously I've got you on the podcast today because you walked the perimeter of Wales, which was a total distance of 1,047 miles.
Officially, yes, but breaking it down, I did come under the 147 due to sort of routes were diverted and weather and stuff like that. But yeah, overall it is 147 the official route.
All right, okay. So how did all of that begin then? How did you get that in your head that was, the thing you wanted to complete or accomplish?
So it started in 2000, back end of 2021. So currently serving in Royal Engineers. I was at the time a training instructor at Gibraltar Barracks 3 RSME.
Right.
Unfortunately, due to some bad decisions I made, I did get suspended with a recommended sanction of termination of service.
Right, okay.
So I was sent home with not a lot of information coming my way. It was all sort of, as it stood, I was potentially getting kicked out of the army. Everything I've owned sort of worked for my life as such at this point, 13 years or 12 and a half at the time, was potentially being taken away from me. So sleeping around mates on sofas at certain times. I didn't want to go home. I didn't want to tell my parents.
Right.
So I was sort of sleeping in my car, my mate's sofas, my uncle's for a bit. Eventually, I had to go home because it just sort of got too much. And I was relying a lot on drink in the end. I couldn't sleep. It was too much. So I was doing a lot of drinking. And one night, it was about 20th of December. I realized that I just couldn't continue the way I was going in that period. I needed to have something to focus on. And I logged into Facebook and I seen a ad of walk the coastal path of Wales virtually, and they'll send postcards to you as to where you'd be at that point.
Right.
And me being me, I just thought, why do that? Just go and do it. Go walk it.
Yeah.
A couple of days later, I was like, yeah, I'm going to go ahead with this. But then I decided if I walk from south to north on top of the coastal path, that'll be over 1,000 miles, and it'll be 1,047 mile hike for me, which I thought, sounds better walking 1,000 miles as opposed to the 800.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah,
That's sort of how I got around to the idea, and it's once I got an idea in my head, I go for it.
So obviously at the time you were drinking
Yeah.
quite heavily, as you said yourself. So when did you cut that off? Did you just cold turkey it, or like how was that sort of transition of being dependent on alcohol to being this fitness guy?
I've always, I say always, the last sort of 5-6 years, I've always been quite fit. Doesn't matter state of, if I go for a night out, I could, pull pin and sort of get in at 6 a.m. I could go for a good run 8 o'clock then, first parade. And I've always had the basic fitness where I'd be able to do it.
Right.
But on this occasion, I just I just called it a day of the drinking. I still have a few pints here and there, but I sort of rein it in now and know when to stop.
Yeah.
But with this, I just decided I can't continue because I'm going to get myself in a world of bother. I just sort of called it a day.
Yeah, just for anyone listening that's not sort of military affiliated as well, just because you're in the military doesn't mean you're a fit person. Like some of the biggest people that I've met have been military guys, like the biff chits and stuff like that. So I don't want people thinking that I'm being a bit of a spaz. You know what I mean? Asking you if you stayed fit when you're in the military, because as you well know yourself, like not everyone's a fit cookie.
Oh no.
So obviously, so you've not. So you're not teetotal then? You still,
No. I still have a pint.
Yeah, that's good.
But I've finally realised that it's not. I've normally been the last person to walk away from the bar at You
Yeah.
know, 2, 3 a.m. mess functions. I'd always be the last one dragged out or carried out at midnight. I finally realised at 32 that it's just not worth it anymore. You
Yep.
know, I'll happily go out now with the lads, but I'll rein it in. I'll have 2 or 3 pints, and then sort of at that point, I know which way it's going to swing, so I know whether to sort of call it a day or
Yeah.
continue.
Yeah. 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 So how long was the time period then from when you started thinking about it to actually your first step?
So so I started 20th of December. I thought about it. I
Yep.
was, funnily enough, I was led in bed at my parents' back in my old room, with a can of Stella in my hand at 1, 2 a.m. It was couldn't sleep. Um, I was intending on that was yeah, so that was December. I was intending on setting off on the 1st of August, be it of 2022, being my annual summer leave. Um, Unfortunately, through all my discipline that I was going through at work, it just dragged on and on. It went on for so much longer than we actually anticipated. I finally got around to doing it 1st of August 23. Um, so from when I decided to do it, I was at Gibraltar Barracks as an instructor, and now I'm based in Tidworth 26 Engineer Regiment, where I sort of had, with me no longer being in the rank I was, because I got demoted from a full screw. I sort of had the opportunity and a bit more time on my hands.
Yeah. For anyone
So it was a
that's
fair
not
while.
military, again, a full screw is a corporal.
Yeah.
It's all right. No, it's fine. I just know that there's going to be. I'll be getting bombarded with messages otherwise.
Questions asked, yeah.
Um. So obviously, I mean, I don't want to go into it if you don't want
No,
to.
it's fine. Honestly, yeah, it's fine. We can go fully into it.
But with the suspension for your 4 month suspension, was there
Yeah.
not at any time mention of you doing time in the clink in MCTC?
Nothing mentioned about that whatsoever.
So it was just a four
So I
month
had
suspension.
from a investigating officer initially, a OC.
Yeah.
She recommended termination of service, and then so that was sort of lingering over my head for months. And then I had from my commanding officer recommendation being reduction into rank to lance corporal. I then had to go in front of a brigadier,
Yeah.
who then sort of in the middle of that I went and I got demoted back down to sapper, so from corporal back to sapper.
Right. Okay. Do you want to go into what it was about?
Yeah, no dramas at all there. I think I say pretty much the whole of my regiment know about it. The whole corps probably know about it now. So as I said, I was a training instructor. And after one of my courses had finished, I then made a rash decision to get involved with one of the female trainees that was on my course.
I mean, it's not unheard of.
It's not no, but I think the way the world is going,
Yeah.
it's obviously it's not a boost,
Yeah.
certainly frowned upon.
Yeah. I mean, it was when I was in, but I know for a fact a few of the instructors when I was a trainee, that they were, and it was just sort of hush hush.
Yeah, well, unfortunately, on this occasion,
It's not.
that was
Yeah.
the way. So yeah, we had that, and in that thought, so that obviously, like I said, I went home, which led to a bit of a spiral for me drinking. I got into a bit of bother on Civvy Street as such with the police then,
Right.
which obviously didn't help my case, which then prolonged the whole process in work.
What was
So,
that
so
for
they had
scrapping?
say again, sorry.
Was that scrapping? Was it?
Yeah, so I went and seen a friend of mine. It was one of them. I needed to sort of let off a bit of steam, so I went up to see a
Yeah.
friend of mine. Chuck Trigger in the car. Trigger being my dog. We went up, watched some rugby, Six Nations, and I had a full day on the beers. Got to the evening, sort of around 9:30. I went to my car to go and charge my phone. Unfortunately, the landlord seen me go into my car and phoned the old bill, thinking I was gonna shoot off.
Yeah.
Um, my mate lived around the corner at the time, so he ran home to grab a phone charger for me, which left me in a sort of not, I weren't in a great place in terms of how much I'd had to drink that night. It was a full 9 hours of drinking, so I weren't in a great place. And yeah, so the old bill turned up, opened my car door, which led to my dog then running out onto a main road. Um, my dog being everything to me, I then went to go and chase my dog. Police thought I was doing a runner, and it all escalated. I pushed the police off me, which pushed him in the chest to get him off me, rode up and basically throat jabbed him.
Right.
So everything escalated so
Sorry, I
fast,
shouldn't
and
laugh, but
it wasn't a great occasion. So I got done for being in charge of a vehicle. I got
yeah, yeah,
assaulting a police officer. So all my discipline, that was then second case of discipline that come my way, and it just all built up, and that's what
yeah,
prolonged the whole case.
yeah. It
So it
just
weren't a great
snowballed.
time.
No, no, it doesn't sound it. So with that, then obviously you've been demoted down to sapper.
Yep.
Moved back to Tidworth. How's it been since being back in the UK?
So I've been in the UK the whole time. So Gibraltar Barracks is in Camberley.
Oh right, yeah, yeah, yeah. Sorry, yeah.
Yeah.
Uh,
Sorry. But moving back to a normal field unit, it's been going to obviously being a corporal back down to a sapper now. It's adjusting to that again. It's been difficult. So I'm finding troop management are sort of finding it difficult I feel like they find it difficult how to use me. Obviously, I'm a fully qualified corporal,
yeah,
but wearing a sapper rank slide. So it's how they use me. They don't want to sort of make me feel like they've gone back to the bottom. The sappers in my troop now, they feel like they can't ask for my sort of help in certain jobs because they feel like I'm still a corporal technically. So I am sort of at the moment. I've been here since April, so nearly 6 months now, and it's just sort of biding my time until I get my first rank slide back. Because at the moment I am just sat there waiting, where I'm in limbo of what I can do. I'm
yeah.
qualified to do stuff, but I don't have the rank to
To
do
carry
it.
it out. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So have you got any sort of what's the word? Like a period of time where you can't be promoted?
No, so I did have that's all gone now completely. So
Right.
I will be sitting on the promotion board now, which sits the 3rd of September, I believe. So I've only got sort of like 2 more weeks to wait. So hopefully I'll get my first tape back then and I can start progressing again.
Yeah.
But yeah, it has been the change of pace as well from a training unit back to a field unit. It's been hard to adjust to be honest with you.
Yeah, yeah, I can imagine. So you touched on obviously your dog Trigger there, and like I said to you before in the pre-show, obviously in your statement you said that Trigger saved your life on more than one occasion. Just want to go into that, like when you got him and how that's. I know obviously you've got the tattoo on your chest of him.
Yeah. So I got Trigger. I picked him up in well, he's 4. He'll be 5 next month. So that's taking us back to 2018. So I picked him up Christmas Eve of 2018. Um, I actually bought him when I was deployed in Estonia. Sort of as a so me and my partner at the time we've been together sort of 5 years. We are looking at getting a house when I come back from deployment to Estonia. So I bought Trigger for us to sort of start a new life after I got back. But unfortunately, things didn't work out. So with my partner, whilst I come back on my 2 week at R&R from Estonia after 4 months or so, I got a phone call from her. She fell pregnant, which was for me at the time was great news. But then, sort of 3-4 weeks after that, I got another phone call saying that she just couldn't go through with it at all. So me being stuck in Estonia, I couldn't really speak to her. There was limited comms at the time. And yeah, it turned out she went and had an abortion by herself, which for me it sort of broke me. I was out there, couldn't do nothing. It just she hated me for not being able to be there. and it just, yeah, me personally, it broke me because it's sort of everything that I wanted.
Yeah.
Um, so a bit of time went by. So yeah, at this point I didn't have trigger, but a bit of time went by. Then I got trigger, and yeah, so my partner then at the time, completely, we moved to Basingstoke, 20 minutes down the road from Tidworth. And after 6 months, she couldn't like sort of she just had enough.
Right.
Um, I feel like the decision that she made to have the abortion is sort of split us a little bit. There was always that was always sort of niggling away at both of us, sort of
Yeah.
thing. She moved here away from friends and family. She didn't settle properly, and eventually she had enough and went back home. So just shy of 7 years, she called it a day. And I was broken. I had nothing to me. Obviously started sharing trigger week back and forth, but eventually it just got too much. She just didn't want nothing from me anymore. She didn't want nothing to do with me. Um, so I had to get rid of the house, everything. I've done it all by myself. I was sort of in my head, I was sort of a bit too proud to ask for any help.
Yeah.
Um, and once it finally sunk in, I was sort of like completely lost her. After a month and a half, 2 months or so. Yeah, it was August the 19th. I was driving back from her house after one final attempt of sort of saving it. And it
Yeah.
was a no, don't want nothing to do with you anymore sort of thing. Yeah, so it broke me driving back to camp. I had tears going down my eyes. The roads in Wales, there was a just to the right of the road, you're sort of looking at a 200-foot drop down the road, down a cliff. And for me, I just sort of had a really, really weak moment where enough was enough. I didn't want to be here anymore. I hadn't spoke to any of my family, any of my friends, so it all just built up too much. And at that decision, I decided that's it. I'm taking my car off the side of the road. But I looked at Trigger, like I said, I had tears streaming down my face. I looked at Trigger, I told him I'm sorry. Like, he was coming with me. He was sat on the passenger seat. He looked at me and just tilted his head. And that moment, I just sort of, in my head, I was like, what the fuck are you doing? You're going to kill your dog,
Yeah.
who's been there for me since day one. And yeah, so yeah, I pulled out of that one sort of last minute. As such, bottled it, took the bumper off, clean off my car, everything, and
Yeah.
yeah, pulled up in the lay-by up the road and just bawled my eyes out for God knows how long. So he saved me that way, but throughout all of this discipline I've been going through, my mum's had cancer scare, my granddad had a heart attack, my dad's had a heart attack. All of this, he's been the only one that I can constantly sort of rely on.
Yeah.
So for him, he is everything.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting that like while you've been talking about that and in that story that you were more worried about the harm you were going to bring on to Trigger than yourself. Like it was more like
Yeah,
I'm taking him with me and he's an unwilling participant rather than me going off this cliff is going to end my life.
yeah. Like I said, he's been there for me since day one. Every day, whether I leave my room for 10 minutes or 2, 3 hours, the excitement he gives
Yeah,
me when I get back, it's just can't explain it.
yeah,
And the fact that he has been there since day one, he is like that. He's just an innocent dog that sort of I am his world, and for me to end his world, end his life, it just made me sort of snap out of it instantly, and you know just could not bring harm to him.
hmm. Well, I'm glad that you did, obviously,
Yeah.
and we all are. All three of my listeners are as well. Um, so so when else has he stepped in then? Where else has he been when he's been your rock?
Yeah, as I just mentioned briefly then, so in that time from that incident of me, well, me nearly sort of going off the road, I've had my mum's, she had a cancer scare.
Right.
So she went in for her scan and she got told she had a lump and we had to wait 3 months. So that took a while. So
Mm.
there was that constantly over my head. My dad has had a heart attack, his second one, so he weren't in a great place.
Yeah, I'm seeing a
My
lot of
grand
similarities in our life here.
my granddad has had a heart attack, and only recently, unfortunately, my nan's just been diagnosed with cancer now. So in the last
Fucking hell.
2 years, he's been there a lot. He's been there for me. He's the only one I can 100% rely on him being there and just sort of bringing a bit of joy to my life.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Just sort of taking the edge off it.
Yeah.
So talk me through. Obviously, we'll get to your perimeter walk in a minute. What about this record attempt?
Yeah. So this walk, training for that. So I decided on the 20th what I was doing, 20th December, Boxing Day. I set off, started training on Boxing Day. Um, there was so much training. The training basically day to day was just sticking weight on my back and going for a walk. You know,
What were you using as weight?
so weight I've got plate carriers, so I take the obviously the plates out of them. I've also I've got sandbags made up, taped up individual weights, or varying from half a kilo up to 5 kilos, just for daily for daily fizz that I do with work and stuff. So yeah, work. There's just a lot of tabbing, and eventually it did get a bit tedious. It was the same old go for a tab again, another tab. 10 milers, 15 milers. I never once went over 25 miles because I was just getting bored.
Right. Okay.
Trigger, being a French bulldog, he's only got small legs.
Yeah.
The longest he come with me was 12 miles, and that took forever because he was constantly stopping for a piss.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
So, I tried taking him with me, but it was difficult to go out for a fizz for long enough, knowing that a 1,047 mile walk, to be completed in a month, I had to average 33.7 miles a day.
Yeah.
So I
Yeah.
needed some long walks.
It's
But
some going.
yeah, so getting round to it, the training was getting very tedious, boring, and I wouldn't say losing interest, but I needed something else. So I seen I seen a post on Instagram. Somebody had a world record, a 10 kilometer cross country race carrying 60 pound in the Bergen. Um, so with all the weight that I'd been carrying over time, I was like, in my head, I was like, I can do that, no problem.
Yeah.
Um, so I
What
applied for
What
that.
was the record at the time?
So the record is 1 hour, 2 minutes, and 30 something seconds.
It's not bad shifting that.
It's not. And the other record, I was searching then for that and doing a bit of looking into it. I seen another record of a half marathon cross country
Right.
carrying 60 pound, and then a half marathon road. So in my eyes, I was like, "There's three world records that I can attempt here." I applied to Guinness World Records, and it took so long. The process of from applying to getting an answer back for the thumbs up to do, it's just so long. But in the training from applying to actually going out and training and attempting the records themselves, I broke all three of them. So I broke the 10K cross country race. In training around camp, I sort of done it in 57, 58 minutes. So on more than one occasion. So I was very comfortable with that. The half marathon at the time was like 2 hours 50 minutes. So I tried it 2 hours 15 something I done. So I was nearly sort of 35 minutes quicker. So again, that was another one. I was like, just give me the thumbs up to go and I'll go and do it. And the last was a road race, which road half marathon. 2 hours 15 the world record was, carrying 60 pound, and I done it in 1 hour 52 Cardiff half marathon last year. The only problem was I had no thumbs up from all of them.
Right.
Since then, the road marathon has been broke down to 1 hour 40 something. So that's some going.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think that's even beyond me now. However, the half marathon cross country has been broke, but only sort of 2.5 hours. So that's still well capable, as well as the 10K. So I attempted the 10K back in October, November last year, I think it was, in Oxfordshire at a tough runner event. Started off so well. I was sort of 4 or 5 minutes ahead of schedule at the halfway point. But the second half of the race, I'd done no recce for it. I didn't look at the map. I didn't look at the terrain or nothing. The fact that I was running 57 minutes in training, I think I got a bit too cocky in my head. You
Yeah.
know, I sort of the
Pro-
night beforehand, I was speaking to my mate on FaceTime. I had a beer in hand, eating croissants.
yeah.
In my head, I think I just got a bit too cocky for it, and I ended up missing out by a minute. The
Yeah.
terrain in the second half just got too much.
I feel that there's a very common saying in the military:
Yeah,
6 Ps.
yeah, 6 Ps. We all know them, but unfortunately, I just didn't put it to practice this time.
No. So for anyone that doesn't know, the 6 Ps is prior preparation prevents piss poor performance. So you're going right. So you're 5 kilometers in, 27 minutes. You're on obviously you're on target, 5 minutes short. Do you think that factored into it at all? That you'd gone off that you'd gone out guns blazing, so to speak.
No, I don't. I don't think so at all. You know, like I said, I've done in training. I was sort of doing it at
Yeah.
57 minutes by myself. So you're looking at 29 minutes for the halfway point by myself. So the fact that I was only a minute and a half, 2 minutes ahead of that at an event, running past people carrying 60 pounds, and they're looking at you, like what's going on?
Yeah.
It sort of the adrenaline and the motivation that gave me it was fine. So I don't think it was the case I went off too fast. I think with it being a world record attempt, it had to be recorded.
Yeah.
And I've got videos from the lad that was recording it, and the cameraman that was doing it, he slipped going down the terrain. The terrain was awful. Sort of looking at 24% angles. It was pretty bad. It's just, and then obviously what you go down, you've got to come back up.
Yeah.
And it just done my legs in. And I think at one point, I even mentally wrapped a little bit at about the 8K point. I was like, I'm just not going to do this. Instead of pushing through it at that point, I got to the top of the hill and had a word with myself and pushed on, but it turned out I was a minute too late.
So when's the reattempt?
Say again, sorry?
When's the reattempt?
Yeah, this is it now. So after, like I said, my walk finished on the 2nd of September. I had a couple of days off. My legs felt great afterwards, strangely. But since then, I've been on the Jurassic Coast for a walk, carrying 40 pounds. I've been in the gym, leg day, and it's shown my legs haven't recovered yet. So I'm gonna have another see the end of the month out, and then try again on the 1st. Start training again, and then hopefully by the end of the year, I'll look at a race, put it together, and we'll go again.
How did you feel when obviously you'd gone for that record attempt at 10K and you'd failed? Was there any point then after you were like, actually I'm not going to do this perimeter walk?
No, not for the perimeter walk. That was always going to happen. But I'd say for the next 2-3 weeks after that attempt, my training wasn't. I sort of lost interest a bit.
Yeah.
You fail something by such a small margin after all the training you've put in. I was either going to go one way or the other. I was either going to train harder or give up. I give up as such for a couple of weeks. So yeah, I've never got round to reattempting it. It's coming up to nearly a year now, which is quite bad. Would have liked to have attempted it before then, but it is what it is. Unfortunately, I'll get round to it, and I will get it.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I'm sure you will. So obviously we're moving on to your perimeter walk now. We've got 10 minutes left on this one. How day one or the weeks leading up, I suppose, it was a good place to start the weeks leading up. How did you feel? What was your prep like? Your meals and all that sort of stuff.
So with it being delayed for so long, it didn't feel real that it finally come around. If I was going to sort of like football training, cricket practice with the lads, and it was all like you're starting your walk in 2 weeks, and it just and in my head I was just always like, yeah, I'll be all right.
Yeah.
So again, going back to the 6Ps, my preparation leading up to it was pretty bad. Looking back, I think I underestimated the whole thing. So my training itself, like I said, I was carrying a lot of weight for quite a duration on a regular basis, but I never once went over 25 miles. Considering I had to do 33 a day back to back, I never once done 25 back to back.
Right.
In my head, I was always like, I'll just wing it, I'll cuff it on the day.
Yeah.
I'll be fine. The occasion will get the better of me, and I'll be fine.
Yeah.
So I'd say it was only about 5 days prior to stepping off before I actually started packing and going through my kit properly. In my head, I was always going to eat at pubs, cafes. So I took sort of minimal food. I was quite fortunate. A company sorted me out with some sort of rations, resilient nutrition. They sorted me out with some good, high calorie, like peanut butters as such for the walk, which didn't take up a lot of space. So, they were very good. So everything else for me was I'll stop off in a cafe, get breakfast, evening meal, I'll just go to a pub. So that was sort of my food. Kit wise, packing, it was difficult knowing sort of weather we were having at this time. It was sort of like, is it going to be hot? Is it going to be cold? So, it was sort of trying to prep for both. I've always been one to hike in shorts anyway, so that was sort of okay. But it was, more down for the evenings. There's just so much to think about. And it did show, there were occasions I was led in my tent in the evenings thinking, I fucked up here. I should have done this. I should have done that.
Yeah.
But yeah, leading up to it, like I said, 5 days packing beforehand. That all got sorted. Finalized kit for me was weighed. So the kit weighed 60 pound. It wasn't just a whatever you've got. 60 pound specifically. Which it had a reason for that. Statistically, worldwide, sort of 60 men mental health kill themselves an hour.
Right.
So the whole journey for me started back when my ex had the abortion. So it was all mental. That I was struggling mentally. That's what brought me onto this walk. I needed something. So the 60 pound represented the 60 men. And with it being such a big burden, that essentially was a visual burden for people to see.
Yeah.
Blokes, I'm very guilty of it. Blokes sort of bottle things up and don't speak. So that was the reason, again, 60 pound. But yeah, stepping off on that morning of the first at 8 o'clock, my parents were up.
I'll tell you what, before we get into it, because we are closing in on time now, we've got about 5 minutes left. We'll save it for next week's episode.
Okay.
Do you want to give everyone your Instagram, YouTube, all your social medias?
Yeah, to be fair, I've only been using Instagram for this, really. I will have to have a quick check of it because I've only recently changed the name for it. It's Carl Thompson Adventures. So previously people might know it as Carl's Welsh Adventure. But yeah, Carl Thompson Adventures. So I'm now looking at my next challenge, hence the name change. I've just, finished that walk, and it's sort of I can't sit still now.
Yeah.
As daft as it sounds, I do feel a little sort of lost of not waking up every day doing something.
Yeah.
So now, like I said, I'm going to sort of new challenge, look at something, start training for something new.
Yeah. Yeah. Perfect. Just quickly, I'll just double check you. It's underscore, isn't it? So it's Carl _ Thompson _ adventures.
Yeah, that's right. Yes.
Yeah, it's all right. Just making sure people can find you. That's all. I want to get them extra 3 followers for you.
They all help.
Yeah. Well, thank you very much for coming on the podcast this week.
No, thanks for having me.
Can't wait to speak to you on next week's episode or 5 minutes time. And thank you very much for listening, everybody.